Are you a Jesus-loving woman who overexercises and deprives herself of food, desperately trying to obtain a goal weight on the scale? And yet, at the same time, you strive to be a healthy version of yourself by eating well and feeling fit? Hi, I'm Andrea, and I was running on the same hamster wheel for over 20 years. My toxic body image and eating disorder stole my joy and self-respect. Thankfully, God was always with me, fighting my battles and blessing me with the grit to reclaim my life. I'm off the hamster wheel, but I see you still stuck in the cage, and I want to help free you too. Journey with me every week. I'll share personal stories, tools, mindset shifts, and the practical steps I took to heal my unhealthy relationship with food and exercise. I don't believe food and exercise are the problems. I believe they're part of the solution. Instead, I'll teach you how your mindset and faith are the keys to healing. Get ready to navigate your newfound path to healing. Get ready to reclaim your self-worth. Get ready to realign with your God-given identity. For in this identity is where you find true wellness and healing. When you are well, your gifts shine into the world. Shine on, babe. Let's do this. I'm Andrea Carroll, and this is Good Vanilla. Hey, pretty peeps. I'm quickly popping in here before we get rolling to communicate that I am not giving medical advice. I'm giving energetic, emotional, and mental support for women on their health journeys. I'm here because I care. I hope sharing my story will in some way help you on your unique path. Okay, let's dive in. Welcome, beautiful people. Thank you for joining me on the Good Vanilla podcast. I am so happy to be hanging out with you today. We are going to jump right into things and continue our conversation from last week about triggers. So if you have not listened to episode number 5, please go back and take a listen to that before you continue forward with this episode, because there's just some information about triggers that kind of sets up the foundation around triggers and understanding them and how to identify them and kind of like how they actually form. Today there's going to be some tough love. I'm going to love you, but I'm going to love you tough. Okay. That is the truth. That's how I'm always, that's the type of girl I am. Okay. I'm going to come at you. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. We're just going to dive right in. Okay. Trigger warnings. They are everywhere. All you have to do is open up Instagram, open up Facebook, turn on the TV. I mean, social media, pretty much everywhere, all the messaging there, it's good and it's bad. That's truly what I believe. While I believe we need to be sensitive to others' emotions, I strongly believe each person has a personal responsibility over their emotions and how they regulate and work through their emotions, okay? We need to stop fully relying on trigger warnings to protect us from reliving our original trauma. So I don't know about you, but I don't want to put that kind of power into someone else's hands. I mean, think about it. Wouldn't you feel so much more comfort and confident knowing you have the tools to make it through an emotionally triggering situation? Or are you going to rely on other people that know nothing about you, and to be honest, some don't even care? Like, you're going to rely on them to protect you from your original trauma. It's just not realistic. Okay? Also, I don't believe triggers are something you outgrow. I think they can diminish over time, but don't write off triggers if you haven't had one for a long time. And I'm speaking from experience, okay? And I will get into that in just another minute, okay? As long as you are living, you are taking in your environment all the senses and stimuli. And if you experience trauma, you are bound to be exposed to the stimuli you associated with your traumatic event. And thus, obviously, you're going to be exposed to triggers then. That is why you need to take the responsibility to identify the triggers that are unique to you. Once you identify your unique triggers, you can prepare for them instead of becoming paralyzed by them. And that's just what happens when you rely on someone else. You give them the power. When you rely on someone else to provide a warning for your emotions, to almost like a safeguard over your emotions, you're handing that power away. If you prepare yourself, then you get that confidence. And with preparation, you can diminish the paralyzation and the panic and the anxieties. So that is why it's best to equip yourself to take care of yourself. Give the power back to yourself. Okay, so I have, over the last few months, I have been blindsided by triggers. And I was upset right away. Honestly, I was very upset. I was concerned I was relapsing back into old habits and old thinking, because right away the old anxieties around food and my body, they kind of just swirled up to the surface. I was very much surprised by them. Okay? And I thought I was spiraling, and I started over catastrophizing, thinking, oh my gosh, all the hard work I've put in, I thought I've come so far, and now look at me. One little trigger and I am, well, at the moment I didn't even know that I was being triggered. All I knew, it was the panic. It was the panic, and then the old habits and the old thoughts creeping back in the old narratives that I was telling myself about how I looked and my self-worth and what I needed to do. It just was like a floodgate opened. And I was very concerned. I was very upset. But since I have worked through triggers in the past, it didn't take me too long to realize what was happening, thankfully. So I could kind of reposition myself back into the logical brain versus the panic fear brain that was trying to take over. I want to share one of those triggers with you, the story behind it. When I was 8 or 9 years old, that is when I first started body shaming myself. I noticed my body type was so much different than a majority of my classmates. I was just one of those girls that grew up fast, and I matured quickly, and it showed on my physical self. I was taller than everyone, and I was bigger than everyone. I was more put together. I just had a womanly body when I was 8, 9 years old. And I knew that from years ago when I was in therapy, I discussed this as kind of like a critical age for me, that 8 or 9 years old. Well, I have a 9-year-old daughter, and she is kind of like a mini me in a way with body type. She is just so precious to me. Thankfully, I know how wonderfully beautiful she is, because I can honestly say how wonderfully beautiful I was. But I was blindsided right away when my oldest daughter just kind of blossomed into this young lady. It triggered me. It did. I started reverting back to, I started feeling very insecure about myself. And I tried to control those insecurities with obsessing over food and trying to restrict certain foods for myself. And I caught myself doing this because it's not a normal thing for me now. It's not a normal thing. So I knew something was off. I have enough understanding about triggers and working through them because of everything I've gone through over the last 20 some years or whatever it's been. So it didn't take me too long to identify what was actually going on, because I check in with myself. When I started feeling the panic and the spiraling, and I started reliving those old feelings of not feeling worthy and not being enough and having to work to be accepted, that I have to somehow look a certain way and be a certain way to be loved and accepted. Once those thoughts started creeping in, I knew that it was a trigger. And I noticed that it would get worse. Unfortunately, it would get worse when I was around my daughter. Like, I could feel my breathing getting restricted, and just kind of, the first thing, it would be like an oh no, like thought going through my mind, and then the fear racing through my brain, and all the things that I have to do to overcome that fear. And I had to start speaking the affirmations that I spoke over myself, over my daughter. So once I could tie that trigger, once I tied that trigger to my daughter, it was so disheartening right away, because that is so unfair to her, that she has no control over evoking those emotions out of me. That's all on me. That has nothing to do with her beautiful self. And that is why this is so important, to understand yourself and to identify what you are feeling, and being able to connect all the pieces so that you can do this for yourself. So once I was able to pinpoint that, I figured out a way to work through that. And I still have to go back to those affirmations, and I have to keep saying those things in my head, because it's kind of new. It's something within the last 6 months. So it's retraining those thought processes, those neural pathways in your brain, making that new path, that new line of thinking. And so that is what I've been focusing on with that trigger. But I was completely taken off guard. I had no idea that that once my daughter reached the age of when I started having problems with when I started body shaming myself and noticing that I wasn't like everyone else, that I was different, that it's that age, and she's at that age, and that was all it took. It was all it took to just zing me right back to the 1990, what would it have been, like 1993, back to when I was 8. Zing, there I was, a time machine, reliving those feelings of inadequacy. And it was scary, and it was unfair, and on so many levels, it was something that I put as a priority to work through, obviously, because I love being around my daughter, and I love being with her, and we're so close, and I wasn't going to give those old fears, those old triggers, those old emotions the satisfaction of winning. I had the power in my hands, and I was going to take back the joy that I pursue when I'm around my daughter. So that when I am with her, it is joy. It is not any of this old garbage trying to work its way back up out of me. Another life experience that took me completely by surprise was the problems that I was having with my gallbladder, actually, over the last year. I mean, this is crazy. I learned so many things about myself having a sick gallbladder, because here's what happened, okay? Gallbladder gets sick, and because of that, I lost weight. And somehow losing that weight triggered my old mindset of seeing how much more I could keep losing. And not being able to eat, it triggered my old restrictive starvation habits. I was so shocked when I caught myself thinking these things, that they'd actually enter my mind. It was almost like somebody slapped me in the face. It was just like, what? I'm back there. I am now prioritizing. Those are the priority thoughts going through my brain. Like, oh my gosh, I wonder, I've lost weight. I wonder how much more I could lose. Keep losing. I wonder how much I can lose. And you know what? I don't feel very good enough. I don't feel that great enough to eat. And then it was just kind of like, oh, well, why don't we see let's just push it a little bit further and see how little I can eat. Let me just keep pushing this and see how far I can go. This happened. It didn't happen for very long because, like I said, I am tuned in now to those triggers and that mindset. I am showing you, I am telling you these stories so that you see the importance of identifying these habits and ways of thinking and all this stuff in your life so that you can create the tools around it that you need to support yourself. Because it happens. It doesn't go away. I thought it would go, I thought triggers, and I thought that old stuff, I thought that was all behind me. No. It's just not the way the brain works. And then to take it a step further, it got even crazier because that happened with my gallbladder. Then it flip-flopped. Then all of a sudden it was like I gained weight because of my gallbladder because I got super bloated. I got really bloated and uncomfortable. And then that made me question if I was truly okay with weight gain. It was almost like now you can see that you're like, I was actually gaining weight because of bloat, and I could see it. It was like super uncomfortable. I almost looked like I was like 2-3 months pregnant. That's how bloated my lower stomach would get. And I was really upset about that. But as I worked through my feelings around it, I actually uncovered that the truth was I was super uncomfortable and miserable. So it wasn't actually a fair comparison if weight gain was natural and healthy. The weight gain was out of bloat in my digestive tract, was severely slowed down. It was just weird how the gallbladder like flip-flopped from like the year before. It was like from one extreme to the next. So it wasn't, so then I had to realize I had to logically work through it. I had to talk myself, I had to work back, I had to work through it and figure it out that, yeah, well, I'm upset and I'm super uncomfortable and miserable. It's not out of the weight gain. It's because this hurts. Like, this bloat hurts. This weight gain hurts. It's not natural and healthy. So I had to separate that out. But the thing is, I was able to. And I share these stories so you can see triggers happen to all of us. Expect triggers to be unexpected. We can't run from them or realistically always avoid them. I've said it once and I'm going to say it so many times to you. Be a detective. You have to slow down and begin to identify triggers in your life. Because when you know they are happening and when you know what they are, you'll be able to work through them. Remember what I said earlier about prepare for them instead of becoming paralyzed by them? I was prepared for them. Right away, I was surprised, I was shocked, I was blindsided because it had been so long. But it's just the proof again that as long as you are living, you are taking in your environment, you are taking in everything around you. And if you've had trauma, you are going to experience triggers. And I want you to have the power to work through them. I want you to have the power. I don't want you to have to rely on someone else. Now, granted, there are certain, like I've been to therapy before too. If you need therapy, if you need someone to talk to, if your triggers are that debilitating, yes, you need professional help. And I've been there before. I've had professional help. And now I'm at a point where I can manage them on my own. And I'm just sharing some of the tools and the ways that I've gotten to this point in my life. Because I know you can get there too. And as I've said before, I am here to support you. If you don't have anyone to talk to, you can always reach out to me. Send me an email, send me a DM. Let's talk about this. Let's figure out a way that we can work through our triggers so that they don't paralyze us, so that we don't spiral so far back that we're relapsing fully into old ways of thinking and old habits. Okay? Let's pull ourselves out of them. And actually, in my next episode, I am going to walk you through my process in more detail, like working through a trigger moment. So kind of like how I managed to get from point A to point B from the fully trigger, panic, can't breathe, anxiety moment to realizing, oh, this is what's happening. This is how it's all connected. This is why I'm feeling this way. This is how I can talk myself through it. This is how I'm going to get through this, okay? So my next episode, so come back next week and I will walk you through. It's a pretty simple process, but it just takes a lot of inner work. working through a trigger moment. That is essentially what I'm going to be sharing with you guys next week. So thank you so much for tuning in today. It is an honor to be in your headphones, in your ears. I love spending time with you guys. I love sharing this information with you. Please let me know if there's any other way I can help you specifically through trigger moments. But yeah, I will talk to you guys next week. Thank you. Bye. Psst. Hey girl, I gotta tell you something. Did you know your eating disorder is keeping secrets from you? Yeah, it's a total butthead. But don't worry, I'm here for you. In fact, I created a freebie for you to download. It's the 4 secrets your eating disorder doesn't want you to know. And these are 4 things that I wish I would have known years ago, back when I felt like I just could not get my head above the water no matter how hard I tried. I felt like wave after wave was crashing on me. These are the secrets that have really set me free, knowing these truths about myself. And they are things your eating disorder is trying to keep from you so it can keep control over you. Don't stay in the dark, friend. The link is in the show notes. Go download it now. Go download it now and start working through it and feel yourself free. Thank you so much for sharing your time with me today. If this episode resonated with you or helped you in any way, please tell me how. Email me at hello@andreacaro.com. That's HELLO@ANDREACAROW.com. Also, if there's a specific topic around eating disorders and body image you'd like to hear an episode on, let me know. Your voice deserves to be heard, and I'm here to listen. If you'd like to hear more from me, follow me on Instagram at Andrea_Caro. Friend, please help others like you by sharing this episode and leaving me a review on Apple Podcast. Doing so will help me reach others who so desperately need this message of hope. Thank you so much. I'll talk to you soon.